the One to Go show. It is Puka, once again joined by the Bert Lehman and the Ryan Aho for our final show of 2020. So welcome, everybody. How we doing, fellas? Got some football today. We were talking a little earlier.
No, we don't want to talk about football. We don't want to talk about that at all. But I will talk about the fact that it's been a great year for the show, but I am super, super excited to get done with 2020 and get on to 2021 for sure.
Yeah, I agree. How about you, Bert?
Yeah, I agree. 2020 was a very trying and challenging year. At one point in the spring, we weren't even sure if we were going to have any racing during the summer. Luckily, we were able to get some racing at least. It wasn't the normal season that we normally have, but it was still racing.
Yeah, let me take care of a little bit of housekeeping here before we get going, fans. As always, want to thank a couple of our partners. C4 Energy, official energy drink of the One to Go show. We'll have that down in the links. Of course, Chomps Meat. These are my favorite, the turkey sticks. And now I'll be watching. Now, this is going to be exclusive to our YouTube page. So if you haven't been there, the One to Go show on YouTube, you can go ahead and subscribe, check that out. But starting next week, we're going to be dropping some interviews that we did or that I did. So, but they will only be on YouTube. So make sure you get over there, subscribe, and check those out. We'll get you through these short, cold, dark days of winter. I think we've got about 6 lined up. So for the next 6 weeks, we'll be throwing one in every week. So that's a little bit on the housekeeping there. So Ryan, we'll turn it over to you and we'll get the, I guess this is basically an awards episode, kind of our last episode, kind of an awards episode for the best of 2020.
Yeah, we should really be talking about Gateway and all that stuff that just happened, but that's not happening this year. Of course, it's 2020. There is a couple races coming up, right? There's a little bit of late model racing. We got the Hangover coming up here next week at the 411. We got, the Lucas Oil Tulsa Shootout coming up. We got Wild West coming up. So things are right around the corner. But this episode here is going to be 100% on the best of the storylines, everything related to the 2020 year, which I'll just say it's been unique. I mean, it has been, I don't know any other words to put it to it. I think we can't say some of them on the air, but it's been quite trying. And quite frankly, I talked to some racetracks and they actually had a lot better years this year than they've ever had. So for some people, it was great. And then for other people, they're like, I just want this crap to end, right? And then for some people, it's just in the middle. But let's start with our top 5 storylines of 2020. And starting at number 5, right? Tony Stewart. Little competition going on here with NASCAR, starting the SRX series. I guess it's the Superstar Racing Experience in 2021. Guys, what do you know about that series coming to us next year?
Well, I haven't heard anything about it recently, but I really haven't been paying attention. So there may have been some news released about it, but I'm not sure. When it was first announced, we're all wondering what it was going to be, but they're supposed to be racing at some of the premier tracks, not NASCAR related, around the country. So it'll be interesting to see when it finally does kick off.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of ways you can take this. Just kind of Tony Stewart, kind of that rebel brand he has. It's going to be kind of an ugly divorce from NASCAR. It reminds me a little bit of, and Tony's pockets aren't as deep as like, Vince McMahon. With when he tried the football twice, and of course last year, he really thought he was going to get it right, and he did it last spring right when COVID hit, and so that obviously is a done deal. But there's going to be it's competition for TV contracts. So not just the TV, but of course the ad dollars that go along with it, the attention, and then something. If you find some traction with this, pun intended. The talent, he's already got Ray Evernham on board. I don't know if Ray Evernham had a capacity with NASCAR, but, if you were, looking for somebody who's been in the field, and say, hey, let's talk about chassis safety or something, Ray Evernham would be a good resource. Well, I don't think Ray Evernham's going to be helping out NASCAR. So there's, it's not just the the driving talent and et cetera, but like I said, a guy like Ray Evernham, I think the last person, Bobby Labonte is going to be piloting a car, was kind of the last driver that I heard that had signed on with Tony. So this is going to be interesting. We know what's happened with NASCAR's ratings. And we know what's happened with dirt track racing is going this way. So Tony's got, this is interesting. It's going to be really interesting to see how this thing plays out. Hopefully 2 or 3 years down the road, hopefully Tony can get it to the finish line in 2021. And then we will see a 2022, 2023 and see how it builds.
Yeah. And I heard rumors that XFL, that's not a done deal. I heard that's going to continue to go. The Rock is involved with that. So I heard that, once
Vince sold it. So yeah, The Rock was part of that buying group. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's still going to happen. But, what I'm excited about with Tony is he understands the entertainment aspect of it. And he realizes that a 3-4 hour NASCAR race is simply just not entertaining. He wants to get it into a shorter window, make it more fan friendly. And he's been involved with the dirt track world, the NASCAR world, everything in between. So I'm excited to see what he has in store for 2021. So guys, let's get to number 4. Number 4, we talk about marketing, right? We talk about, basically kind of ties in with what Tony Stewart has. It's all marketing. But one company stands alone in especially the dirt track world in 2020 that really put their stamp on everything. Puka, what happened there?
Oh gosh, it's Dryden, making the splash of like the century, and we've talked about it a few times on this show. And I think, Ryan, you had one of the best points, because there was a point this summer, because they threw in a bunch of money when the World of Outlaws came up to Jackson. They had the sprint and late model show. I think they bumped it up to like 20,000 to win for each. And it was around that time I said, Ryan, do you think that Dryden, is there any question they'll be the title sponsor for the late models next year? And you said, well, wait, hold on a second. And they said, they're getting all the attention and they're not even paying for, we don't have any idea what that, Morton Buildings pays as that title sponsor, but they have definitely made a splash. Everyone knows who Dryden is now. If you didn't, in 2018 or 2019, you know them now.
Yeah. And Bert, what's your thoughts on that? I have a few thoughts, but I'm going to let you go first. What's your thoughts on Dryden's splash in 2020?
Well, I mean, the thing is, the splash wasn't just on a tour, because they're also sponsoring drivers. I mean, obviously Bloomquist and Madden are the 2 biggest names that they sponsor. So, they are throwing money around. Hopefully, it's not just a couple of years where they throw money around and then they're gone. I mean, hopefully this is a long-lasting relationship that can be beneficial for everybody involved.
Yeah, and to add to that, a couple other drivers, obviously Ricky Weiss, right? But in the sprint car world, right? Keith got to get his love. Even in this last show of the year, Keith's got to get his love, right? But in the sprint car world, Logan Schuchart and Jacob Allen, both Dryden cars. So, looking at that, it's like, why would they be a title sponsor? As a fan, and we watched a lot of racing this year, how many times would you say that you heard, does Morton Buildings even stick out, right? They were the title sponsor, and I feel like way more marketing was done by Dryden, and they weren't even the title sponsor. So that's that's something on the World of Outlaws that they really got to pay attention to, right? Because if you're the title sponsor for that series in another business, not related, it's not competition to them, but if they're getting way more exposure than your title sponsor, they need to do some work on that. And they do a pretty good job. But I think they need to go. They think they need to step that up in 2021. Otherwise, there might be some questions answered. So Dryden, huge splash in 2020 in a year where sponsorship dollars were really tough to come by, right? For a lot of people because of everything going on, they threw money everywhere, and maybe they got some PPP money in there to kind of throw around. I'm not really sure. Maybe it wasn't even their money. Who knows, right? So let's go ahead. Puka.
One more comment on that too is, one thing that Dryden's done well that Morton Buildings I don't see any of is, they've got that social media presence, and they've got Madden in some videos. They got Ricky doing some stuff. They got Bloomquist doing some stuff. So they've really capitalized on the star power. And who remember? Just a year ago, well, let's put it 11 months ago. Brett Larson was the Dryden car. Does anyone even remember that? He raced the whole 2019 season. I don't even know, maybe 18. I don't think it was 18. I think he was still kind of just Arnie's car. It was Arnie on it, but and does anybody even remember that Brett Larson, because they weren't doing all this social media stuff, they weren't capitalizing on star power. So yeah, they've made a commitment and they must be seeing some sort of a return on the investment there. So that's, that's great for dirt track racing, and like Bert said, let's hope it's just not a quick splash and done. Let's hope it continues.
Yeah,
Well,
absolutely agree.
I just want to say one thing. I mean, because I'm a diecast collector. But one thing with the Dryden, I mean, they're sponsoring drivers who have diecasts made and are popular, and not just diecast, but even shirts. I mean, you see Dryden all over the place. But me as a diecast collector, if you buy a Bloomquist car, Madden car, it's got Dryden all over it. So they're getting their bang for their buck by sponsoring popular drivers.
And not only popular, but winners, right?
Right.
I mean, if you're spending that kind of money, they want you in victory lane, right? They want you there. They want you to be the person, that's getting those interviews because you're winning, not just because you're popular. You're exactly right. They're popular, but I think they're popular because they're winning. And, tip of the hat to Brent Larson, great job getting that sponsor. But man, I hope he steps up his game in 2021 because he struggled. And I think that's why that money went elsewhere in 2020. So hopefully he can step up his game. Dryden sure has, and that's kind of the story of marketing partners in dirt track racing for the year 2020. So now, we're talking about some drivers, talking about late models. One thing that stuck out to me, and this is going to be number 3, when is the last time that you remember there being 3 distinct powerhouses in the national dirt late model world? That's crazy. And I guess, Bert, we'll start off with you. I mean, you've been following dirt late models for a long time. When's the last time that you saw 3 distinct drivers just absolutely blow things out of the water, and all 3 of them have banner seasons?
Yeah, I mean, obviously we're talking about Jimmy Owens, Brandon Sheppard, and now I'm drawing a blank. 76.
Brandon Overton. There you go.
And I mean, yeah, the thing about Overton is, he didn't follow a series. He just, picked and chose which races he wanted to race at. So what's impressive about him is, he was winning against a variety of different drivers. I mean, he won on Lucas, he won on Outlaws, he won on Sanction, he won other series races. So, we expect the winning of that Bishop does, but the season at Overton was a little bit unexpected, at least in my mind.
Yeah, and I think even Owens, I think Owens has been good. He's won a lot of Lucas titles, but he hasn't been this good, the last couple of years. And, and Overton, I remember the last time the World of Outlaws were in Hibbing, Overton was there in the 76 car, and I can't remember who even owns that at this point, but, and he was just kind of a field filler then. He's young, but I mean, to see where he's gotten, so I think that would have been 14 or something, to see where he's come from 2014 to now. But yeah, I mean, I just, poked into his webpage, 81 shows, 26 wins, 52 top 5s, and then 59 top 10s out of 81 races. And even just getting 81 races in, pretty impressive. Now, I know if you do the Georgia Florida swing, that gets you a lot of shows. You race in Georgia, you go down to East Bay, then you go over to Volusia, you get a lot of shows there. But in this COVID shortened season, he still managed 81 shows, and yeah, definitely a breakout year in a lot of ways for Brandon Overton.
Yeah, absolutely. And if I had to pick a driver to really keep an eye on, other than RTJ, right, for the 2021 season, it's going to be Overton for me, because I think this is his first year that he really just catapulted to the top. But looking at the results for these guys, you mentioned Overton's results, of course, but Brandon Sheppard, 87 shows in the late model. Now, he also ran a couple mod shows, won a couple there, but 87 shows, holy cow, that's insane in this shortened season. 30 wins on the year, 66 top 5s for him. And looking at Owens, 72 shows, 19 wins, 42 top 5s for Jimmy Owens. And, let's get away from just the wins and kind of look at some of the marquee events. Brandon Overton, he won the USA Nationals, dominated the USA Nationals. He was good. Now, hey, Brandon Sheppard was coming, right? But he broke a motor, pulled off. He might add a little something for him at the end, but to finish first, you must first finish. And Charlotte Day 1, not sure if I call that really necessarily a, kind of a crown jewel, but Overton did get a win down at Charlotte. Then you look at Jimmy Owens. He won the Topless, and then, of course, he absolutely dominated the Lucas Oil Series and won that. Looking at Brandon Sheppard, the Silver Dollar Nationals. He won that. the Dirt Track World Championship, I mean, not arguably, it's the biggest paying race of the year. You look at the money earnings for that guy, he kind of blew it out of the water. And of course, another World of Outlaw title for him. So, I'm super happy that we got to watch so much racing this year, because these guys put on a heck of a show. When they competed against each other, it was that much better. But three powerhouses in 2020 in the late models: Brandon Sheppard, Brandon Overton, and Jimmy Owens. And I think that's kind of setting the stage for 2021. I think us dirt late model fans are going to have some pretty cool things to watch. What do you guys think?
Well, Ryan, don't forget that Jimmy Owens also won a crate late model feature. So I know you're a big fan of that. So
20 grand to win for that one, wasn't it? I mean, that was a big payday. That was actually bigger than most of his late model wins. So there is that.
Yeah. But I mean, another thing that impresses me about Sheppard, everybody knows he races the Rocket House car, so he's got good equipment. But when he's not racing that, he has his family owned late model, and he won some Hell Tour races racing that, when the World of Outlaws was, when they weren't racing. So, he loves the race. When he has an opportunity to race his family owned equipment, he does that. And like you said, he also raced some mod stuff.
Yeah, the last time I can think of three drivers kind of being on top like this probably would have been 2012, which was the year that Lanigan really dominated the Woo, and then Bloomquist and Owens were neck and neck in the Lucas series. So, 8 years ago, that I really think that those were kind of the three drivers back then when you pulled into a crown jewel. Those are the kind of guys you were looking for. But there's been a lot of parity, since then. But yeah, these three definitely, like Ryan, you've always made this kind of the cream rises to the top, and those were the three that rose to the top this year.
And what's neat about those three, if you really think about it, humble. The word that really comes to mind, humble. And you look at Brandon Overton, Brandon Sheppard, and Jimmy Owens, their personalities are just super laid back, and is that good or bad for racing? You kind of want one of those people that are kind of rising to the top to be the bad boy, don't you? Bloomquist has always kind of been the voodoo child, black sunshine. He'll say what's on his mind. None of those three really do. So yeah, we kind of need somebody to kind of come around 2021 and turn heel, right? Kind of have a little rivalry going there. So that'll be fun to see if that happens in 2021. So, guys, let's jump on to number 2. Okay. In fact, we're going to go through number 2 so fast that we're not even going to talk about number 2, because when I sent this over to our late model expert, Jeff, he says, really, number 2 needs to be part of number 1, because without number 1, number 2 doesn't even happen. There is no number 2. So, Jeff, you're right on the money. We're going to skip number 2 and we're going to go right to number 1. And I don't think anybody's surprised by this, but the top storyline of 2020, and I don't care if it's the racing world or the world in general, it's COVID. I mean, there is no other way around it. That is absolutely the top storyline of 2020, good, bad, or indifferent. And let's talk about some of the things that happened as a result of COVID. And Bert, I'll let you start. What do you have? What are some things that stuck out to you that happened because of COVID?
Well, I mean, the first thing that sticks out in my mind is that, the season was delayed. I mean, at least in Eastern Wisconsin, we didn't start racing until the very end of May, early June. So, that's almost a month and a half lost, because of COVID. Now, I know some tracks in the western part of the state, they got their season started a little bit earlier. I don't know. The tracks in Eastern Wisconsin must be a little bit more conservative than the tracks in Western Wisconsin. But and then the other thing that comes to mind is, some tracks didn't even race at all. Look at Red Cedar Speedway in Menominee. Unfortunately, they had to pull the plug on the whole season. There was a track in the Hill in Sturgeon Bay, Wisconsin, and Eastern Wisconsin. They didn't race at all this year. So, those are the two things that come to mind right away about how COVID impacted racing.
Okay, what do you got?
Yeah. Well, I think the streaming is really what came to mind. Well, first off, I guess echoing Bert just a little bit is we're lucky, you know, Ryan, you're close to Wisconsin. Bert lives in Wisconsin. I'm an hour from Wisconsin. We're kind of lucky that we were near a state that could race. You know, where South Dakota never shut down. They had racing. You know, we could have snuck over there. In Wisconsin, you know, after that Supreme Court, all of a sudden we're racing. You know, Cedar Lake puts things together. I think that lawsuit, whatever, was on like a Monday night, wasn't it, Bert, or a Tuesday night? And then Wednesday, we're racing this weekend. You know, we're opening. Here we go. You know, and so just the way the states, and I mean, you're seeing that all through. I mean, I don't know if you guys saw that yesterday or two. The Rose Bowl is going to Texas this year. The Rose Bowl. It's like, it's the Rose Bowl, right? It's in California. But and so now next year, I even heard that like one of the girls basketball, NCAA D1, one of the conferences might be doing like a pod down in San Antonio. So you're seeing, you know, kind of these winners and losers from COVID. So we were fortunate, like I said, that we got to see some. You know, just our proximity, and of course Minnesota eventually opened up and such, but the video streaming was the big thing for me. You know, that big announcement in May, hey, we're going to have the Dream, but it's going to be called the Stream. I remember thinking, you know, how's this going to work? What's this going to be like? You know, then of course they did it again with whatever they called it, you know, which ended up being the World 100, but just, of course, all the streaming services, Dirt Race Central, you know, Dirt on Dirt. We got, you know, Flow Racing now. You know, I'm watching, like you, Ryan, you said earlier, so we all watched a lot of racing. We were talking about driving. Yeah, we all watched a lot of racing right here, you know, from home. And so that, you know, for me was a really, really big change. And I don't think that's going to change. And, you know, we'll probably be touching on this for years to come. You know, how is the video and streaming changing the sport? So those are a couple of the big ones for me. How about you, Ryan? I mean, there's just so much there.
I'm just segue off that a little bit. You know, a couple of things Bert mentioned with Menominee not opening, and, you know, in our neck of the woods, and I guess in Minnesota, one of my favorite tracks that I raced at, Proctor Speedway, they didn't open, right? You know, you look at the Granite City Speedway, they didn't open. Montevideo didn't open. So you start looking at some of these tracks that didn't open, right? And then we kind of segue into some special events, right? You know, you talked about Eldora, but you got Knoxville, the Prairie Dirt Classic, you know, I guess the longest lasting WISSOTA Invitational, the Silver 1000, that didn't go. The Red Clay Classic didn't happen. The Advantage RV Mod Tour, no WISSOTA 100, right? No WISSOTA National Points. You start looking at that PRI show, Gateway and Dirt Nationals, which we'd be talking about right now. You know, you start looking at all of that stuff, it's like, my goodness, I mean, that's just, the cancel culture just kind of drove me nuts. And, you know, racing eventually did start to resume at most tracks, and a lot of things did happen. And you're exactly right. On the streaming stuff, it's like I watched more racing online this year than I've ever in my entire life combined watched, right? And I enjoyed it. I think like Dirt Race Central, it was amazing because I'm a WISSOTA guy, right? So I know all the people in WISSOTA, so I can jump on Dirt Race Central and I can watch a ton of races of people I know and enjoy that. And I'm going to ask you guys this though, because of all the streaming and all the shows that we've currently watched online this year, is there a certain track or something? Is there something that's like came to your attention that you wouldn't even have known about without all this streaming stuff? Bert, I'll start with you.
Well, I mean, I kind of touched on this when we did the top 25 late model drivers. You know, the drivers in the Dakotas, I wasn't really familiar with at all, but because of streaming, I was able to watch some of them race. And in a normal summer or normal race season, I would not have done that. But because of in the spring, there were races down south, so I at that time subscribed to Dirt on Dirt, and I was able to watch the races down south. And I was skeptical of streaming, but now I've opened up to a little bit more. I mean, I'd still rather be at the track. Don't get me wrong. I mean, nothing beats being at the track, but streaming does allow you to see races that normally you wouldn't see.
Yeah, for me it was really false. You know, putting them down at Fairbury. Fairbury American Legion Speedway, putting themselves on the map. I mean, that was a track I'd always heard of, I've never been to. And how impressive are they? And, they did a good job. I think they really capitalized on this with their One for the Road was the race that they're doing now between Eldora and Knoxville, which is brilliant. They have to drive from Eldora to Knoxville, why don't you catch them on a weeknight? I think they did a $15,000 to win on a Tuesday night, so a little risky. A one night, one and done, weeknight, but that was a pretty successful event. And then the other one I love, and maybe you guys can remember which one it is. What track is it in Illinois where the flag stand in the middle? Flag stands in the middle. Remember that one? And they streamed a couple of races. I saw a couple of Hell Tour races there, but I can't remember which one it is. But they got the flag stands in the middle.
Did Macon have it in the middle? Was it a little bull ring?
It was a little bull ring, and they got the flag stands in the middle. So maybe if you're out there and you know which track that is, please comment. And then the other thing about Falls, where they film from the backstretch, so you see them crossing the finish line when they're taking the checker, which is, normally, right, you're looking down right there, where this one, you're actually looking across the track. You could see which car noses to the front.
And that's such a good idea, right? Because a lot of tracks, they don't really have anything in the back. It would be so easy to put the media tower in the back, right? Because then you don't have all the interference and all that stuff. That's kind of a pretty neat deal that they did over there at Falls with that. Because like you said, I don't remember who it was. I think it was Shepard, or not Shepard, but I think Pierce and maybe Heckenass or something were side by side at the line, and we're like, how'd they call it that way? And they went back to the video footage, and they're like, yeah, no, we got that wrong. And they did actually make it right after that because it has such a good view. But, what stuck out to me, Falls is number one. I heard of Falls just a little tiny bit, but I never realized how darn exciting that place really is. And I can guarantee you this, that place 100% is going to have more fans come there for like the Prairie Dirt Classic and for some of these bigger shows, simply because of streaming. What they were able to see online, that is going to work out to their benefit for sure. And another thing is this, you get to thinking about, like Bert said, if you're in a certain area and you don't get to watch drivers in these different regions, it really helps to promote those drivers. WISSOTA should be capitalizing on this, because what a marketing opportunity to market the drivers, the fans, the sponsors. There's so much can be done with it. I think we're just in the beginning stages of the streaming services, but because of COVID, right? Simply because of COVID, it really got a lot of people's attention, and I think it's going to be a good tool for the sport moving forward. So I'm excited to see how that goes. Now, another thing, talking about technology, right? We're still on the COVID subject. What are things happen because of COVID? Did you guys ever, in a million years, think that people would actually be watching an iRacing race online as a form of entertainment? I can see sitting down and watching your kids or grandkids play a video game. Yeah, I don't know, hey, I'll watch you. Hey, good job, kid. But like actually people tuning in to watch it, did you ever think that would happen?
Well, you said watching it online. It wasn't even watching it online. Fox Sports was televising it because they were desperate for any sort of sporting event to broadcast in the spring. And what happened, it wasn't part of the Fox thing. It was a different event, but that leads us to what you're going to get to in number 2 is Kyle Larson.
Yeah, exactly. So you think about that, you're talking Fox, you're talking people online, you're talking of all this stuff, right? And keep in mind, just a few days back, I actually watched the inaugural John Seitz Memorial iRacing race online. They held it at the Cedar Lake version because they don't have the River City Speedway on iRacing. And my buddy Johnny Broking led that race, and he kind of faded a little bit, and Jake Franke drove by him. He's a street stock guy now, got a super stock. I never thought I'd watch that. I was over at the Broking camp. I was over there with Bob and Big John, and they're like, hey, we're going to watch Johnny race. And I'm like, oh, good grief. Well, we ended up watching it, and it was actually sad enough to say it was fairly entertaining. Whoever the announcers were on there did a heck of a good job. So that was pretty cool. But we talk about Kyle Larson, right? Because that was going to be number 2. That whole deal, guys, in my opinion, never happens. In fact, not my opinion. It's my opinion now, but Jeff Stone, who brought it up, that never happens. Right. That does not happen without COVID, because he's jumping on there racing, and then he was online, and all of a sudden he slip of the tongue, and he shouldn't have said it. Whatever, it is what it is. But all of a sudden he gets turned in. So number 1, he probably wouldn't even have been doing that if racing would have been going on. So that would never happen. But number 2, my opinion, they wouldn't have made such a big deal about like a little slip of the tongue deal if like everything else in life was going on. There was so little going on in the world at that time. Nothing in sports, no news. People are going, what in the heck? Everybody's bored out of their minds when all of a sudden one little thing turned into like, yeah, you're kicked out of NASCAR. And it's like, what just happened? Are you serious? That does not happen without COVID. It's not even a thing. But, right, NASCAR got rid of them, and us as dirt fans, what a treat it turned out to be. I mean, it was unbelievable. The talent that guy has, being able to watch him, whether it was in midget or USAC cars or World of Outlaw sprints or Lucas Oil late models, 46 wins, I believe, on the year. Absolutely amazing. And just being able to watch his raw talent in a multitude of cars, literally just jump in cars he's never been in and win. That was pretty cool. You know, what's your guys' thoughts on Kyle Larson, which is number 2 and part of number 1?
Yeah, I mean, it was a guy that, you know, I didn't know much about, quite frankly. You know, I knew he did some dirt track stuff. Was he in the Target car when he first got into NASCAR?
Yeah. And in fact, me and Jeff talked about that, and that's why they burnt down all them Targets and the riots and stuff, because what he said on that iRacing race was clearly a racist comment, and that tied him to Target. So they started with all the riots burning down Targets because that's the international symbol.
That's what it was. That was the torch. Okay, so yeah, I mean, like I said, knew who he was, and you know, didn't know much about him, and then of course, you know, we you know, the rest is history at this point. And also remember that iRacing, Bubba Wallace found himself in a little bit of hot water. You know, I mean, I know this is more about Kyle Larson, but just that, like you said, without any iRacing, and I know you had brought up the iRacing about a year ago, Ryan. We talked a little bit about as things got slow. Have you guys ever seen it? And I saw the sponsorships on the cars like you guys did. It just went in one ear out of the other. And I just, you know, and I remember you saying, you know, it's pretty cool, Raj. You can get in these cars and you got to set them up, and guys actually test on iRacing in some cases, you said, right? And so that was a world that I knew nothing about that, you know, now clearly exists, you know, in my reality. But yeah, just like I said, Kyle Larson, 46 wins, you know, nothing needs to be said. I mean, the guy's just a stud.
He absolutely is. And there's what else, you know, what else happened as a result of COVID? You know, myself, this is something we were talking about, guys, about this time last year. You know, I was helping out the Grand Rapids Speedway, had some huge plans, and I'm like, you know, racing is racing, but we got to figure out, how do we fill the grandstands? We got to get more people to the track that have never been involved. I still believe that, right? So we got to create a new fan base. And here in 2020, fanless racing, fanless sports, fanless everything. It's like, here, we're trying to figure out how to get more fans, and we got all these places just going, now we don't need fans. We're going to go without. I'm like, you know, I know that's good, bad. I mean, at least they got to race. I get it. But, man, I mean, I know fan counts were going down, but did you ever think there'd be a day where, like, you watch racing and there's nobody there at the racetrack?
No, I never thought I'd see that. I mean, and like you said, I mean, all sports. I mean, we were just talking, you know, like the Packers. I mean, that stadium seats 73,000 or something like that. And they're letting about 850 people in to watch their games. I mean, who would have ever thought they'd see that? But yeah, you know, with racing, I mean, economically, it just doesn't work to not have fans. And so, yeah, I never thought I'd see that. And then another thing regarding COVID is during the summer, you pretty much had to check the schedules for all the tracks on Monday of each week because the schedules were constantly changing. I mean, just as an example, a Dirt King schedule wasn't anything close from what it was originally supposed to be to what it wound up being by the time the season ended, because I mean, promoters of series especially were just looking for tracks that would be willing to host their races. I mean, how many World of Outlaw races did Cedar Lake have this year? Because Cedar Lake was able to host racing with fans.
Yeah, we touched on, you know, just a couple episodes ago. Of course, the Challenge Series was another thing that got canceled. And we had talked in the spring about, you know, we got the repairable vehicles, you know, that Tri-State Series, that's kind of the South Dakota, a little bit of Iowa, a little bit of Western Minnesota, like Montevideo, I believe, was supposed to have a show and stuff like that. And then we've got the Dirt Kings, which came over into Eastern Wisconsin, especially Mississippi Thunder, more than ever, and kind of how that was going to put the crunch on the Challenge Series just a little bit, because Challenge Series didn't have a lot of regulars. Well, like I said, guys are, the guys already have a taste of these other series now without any competition from the Challenge Series. This year it was just, well, we got to do this one, or we have to do this other one. Well, how is that going to affect things going into 2021? Are they going to say, well, yeah, I really like that series director. I like the guys that race there. When there's a conflicting date or what have you, I'm going to go do that. So I'm going to go with the Dirt King. So that's going to be something lingering from COVID.
And really, probably going to get in trouble for saying this. It is what it is. But it makes you look at these other series, right? Because the Discount Shop Pals Dirt King series, they continued on. The Repairable Vehicles Tri-State series, they continued on. IMCA, they continued on. USRA, they continued on, right? World of Outlaws, Lucas Oil, all that stuff, USMPS. The only one that didn't was WISSOTA. Okay? Well, WISSOTA it's an association. It's a club. All these other ones have a promoter of the series. They have one person in charge. They run it like a business. WISSOTA is run like it's like a city council or like a union or whatever, where you got your board of directors and you got all this input and all that. Ultra conservative, right? They don't have no vision. They're not problem solvers. They're not people looking at it going, you know what? Yeah, we have an issue right here, but we're going to make it work. We just got to pivot a little bit and make it happen. They just threw in the towel right away and said, well, we're just, there's a handful of guys in Canada that can't race, so it's just not fair. We're not going to have it. And at first I'm like, yeah, I get it. But no, after looking at it, I don't get it. I think absolutely WISSOTA dropped the ball there, in my opinion. There should have been national points. There should have been a 100. They should have carried on. They could have moved the 100 if they want to, but they just folded up 10th. And that kind of, I think when something happens like COVID or any obstacle in life, you find out who the winners and the losers are. And the winners are people that pivot and they make it happen as a result of it. They might have to make some changes along the way. And the losers in the deal are the ones that just kind of throw in the towel and give up. And it's sad to say, I'm kind of starting to see what side of the spectrum certain groups and people and all that are falling into. And I'm not liking what I see being where my region is. So with that, anything else that happened with COVID this year that really stuck out to you in the racing world? I mean, that's a lot right there, but clearly in 2020, that is the number one story, not only of racing, but of the entire world, is COVID.
I got one thing, or two things actually. Well, first off, I hope the sponsors come back. It's kind of tough to sell sponsorships when, you close for the year like Procter or Montevideo, and it's hard to sell sponsorships when you have limited fans. So, or no fans at all in some cases. And then as we're talking more about the streaming, we just kind of see the world, the world is going here, right? I mean, this is where the world is now. And it's going to be interesting to see, will there be a time when that flips, where there's more people watching from the seat of, their recliner in their living room than actually attend? Will there be a situation like retail? Many retailers have seen that. They have stores, but now they sell more online than they do in their retail store. So will we see that? Like Bert said earlier, I'd rather be there. I'd rather be there too. I like the smell. I like the rumble. You can feel the racing. But will there be a time when people, we know that the average race fan, a little bit on the probably 50 plus, people are getting to their 60. I hear them say it all the time. I don't like driving at night anymore. I don't like driving at night. So is this kind of solve that problem? And like Ryan, you were saying earlier, who's going to be ready for this change, and this pivot? And, that's kind of where, you can look at it as a negative, say, well, that online is ruining racing, or you look at it as an opportunity, and we have to capitalize that and figure out a way to get people right in their living room to, subscribe to our own service or one of the other services and find a way to make that happen.
Bert, I'm going to let you touch on your thoughts there, and then I do have some thoughts on that.
Well, I mean, regarding the streaming, there was an instant this year where this would have never happened in the past, but now that I'm familiar with streaming, I was at the World of Outlaw event at Outagamie Speedway in Seymour, Wisconsin, and I was with my friend, Frank, who goes to the USA Nationals every year. And during a downtime in the program, he was watching Lucas Oil TV. He was watching the Lucas Oil feature, and I was streaming another race on my phone. It was from Western Wisconsin. I can't remember what track it was at, but so we were actually physically at a race, but we're watching other races during a downtime at the track.
Same here. Me and Puka, right? We're sitting there in Hibbing. We're doing the same thing. We had one race on. We're watching the other. We're kind of flipping back and forth. I've actually been in an announcer's booth where like the race director has a race going on, and in between races, they're kind of looking down and catching the racing action from other places while they were watching the races when the races were happening, but they're also using it as instant replay at the track. So there's kind of some things that happen there. But myself, you guys mentioned, would you agree both of you guys would rather be at the track than watch it online?
Yes.
I'm the flip side of that. I'd rather, if I'm going to just watch the race, okay? Now, I don't go to the races because of just watching the race. But if I want to just sit back and enjoy the good racing, right, I would rather watch it online. I simply would. Like if an NFL game, right, the Minnesota Vikings, and Bert's going to shake his head because his Packers kicked the crap out of us as far as playoffs and all that stuff. Like the Vikings had an off year. But with that said, yes, I like going to an NFL game every once in a while, one a year, maybe a couple a year because of the atmosphere. But as far as the actual, for me, watching the game, the commentary, the better view, I would rather watch it on TV all day long. I would, and I'd rather watch it by myself because I don't want anybody bugging me. I want to watch it. Now, if a track is in jeopardy of fans wanting to watch it online rather than being at the track, that has nothing to do with the online service. That has to do with their lack of entertainment value of being at the racetrack. This is where I disagree with Puka. I don't believe we need 9 classes of cars. I know he likes that. Sarcasm, he really doesn't, okay? But, nobody wants to go to a racetrack and watch 7, 8, 9, 10 classes of cars. There is not one person on planet Earth that's going, man, I hope they got 10 classes and they have us there for 8 hours. That would be awesome. No, nobody wants that. See, I talked to a friend of mine this a couple weeks ago, Josh, and he lives down over by Alexandria and owns Runestone Insurance, sponsors a bunch of race cars. And he's like, Ryan, I don't go to the races to watch the races. I enjoy watching racing. I go there for the people. I go there for the interaction. I go there to visit. He goes, I love when the races get done at 10 o'clock, maybe a little bit before, so I can go down in the pits. Or he's in the pits anyway, but so we can hang out, maybe have a beer or two, visit with the drivers, tell some stories. But these race programs that get done at midnight, 1 o'clock in the morning, no, nobody wants that. And some of those tracks are going to see people wanting to watch it online because nobody wants to be there that long. So that is going to happen. And I think some tracks, like you said, Puka, they're going to have to make a pivot to kind of combat that, make their program better. So with that said, I'll recap the top 5. The SRX series by Tony Stewart. That's number 5, right? Number 4, I already forgot, right? Number 4, Driving. They put themselves on the map in 2020. Number 3 drivers making their mark in the late model world. Number 2, we X'd it out, right? And number 1 is simply COVID, but Kyle Larson's big story in 2020 really was number 2, but it wouldn't have happened without number 1. So, guys, it's been a heck of a year, and one for the record books, because all the stuff that happened before, because of COVID, never in a million years did I think any of that would happen. And, what do you say we get into now the best of 2020? What do you say we get into that?
Perfect.
All right, let's do it. All right. We got a handful of things. We like to give out awards. There's some people that deserve some recognition and maybe some that maybe don't want the recognition, but hey, that's okay. So let's start with, we already mentioned this track, and the One to Go Show National Track of the Year for 2020. Puka.
Yeah. Fairbury All-Americans, or American Legion Speedway, hands down, like I said, put themselves on the mat, did a great job with streaming. The Perry Dirt Classic, this was the first year that it was supposed to be a 3-day, $50,000 to win event, so, really, because they were 20,000 before that, so really moving solidly into that crown jewel category. But I think many race fans are going to, like Ryan said earlier, going to find their way to that Black Dirt to Falls, exciting racing, slide jobs, ripping the wall. It's just a fantastic facility, fantastic racing. And like I said, they proved it on numerous different, whether it was the Hell Tour or the one for the road. And they did have that race, I think early October, that Bishop one was like $15,000. I can't remember the name of it now, but so they, like I said, they pivoted and they made it happen. And yeah, I mean, congratulations to everyone at Falls. Bert, I don't know if you want to comment.
No, I mean, I agree. I mean, Falls is one of the tracks that is on my bucket list to get to one day. And this year's racing action there didn't do anything to discourage that.
Yeah, and I'll just end with this. Prairie Dirt Classic 2021, that is on the list, and I fully intend to go there, so I'm jacked up to get there, and it wouldn't have happened without COVID because I probably wouldn't have even watched the race there. So let's get into number 2 here, the regional track of the year. Bert.
We decided on Mississippi Thunder Speedway. I don't think there's a track in the region that has done more to promote itself over, even before COVID. They were really pushing the promotion at that track, but it seems like they're striving to get bigger and better. And 2021 they have the World of Outlaw late models coming there, so that's a 2-day show, I believe, or 2 shows there. And so they keep pushing the bar up, and that's a good thing.
Yeah, they're not resting on their laurels. They, like I said, World of Outlaws May 7th and 8th, MLRA shows in there, 2 Dirt King shows again this year. And I remember, is it Tyrone that runs it? I remember watching one of those Facebook Lives, like again, when they were working on, how are we going to get this to work? And Wisconsin's open. And I mean, I remember like thousands of views, on that video of him saying, this is kind of our plan. And like I said, they went all at it to make racing happen. And that 4th of July special that John Canta won, that was that a Dirt Kings or was that just a,
yes.
Okay, that was the Dirt Kings, yeah. So, like I said, just the fantastic year. Like, again, a track I hadn't been to, hadn't seen a lot of, but like Bert just said about the Prairie Dirt Classic and Fairbury being a bucket list track, that's a bucket list track for me. I'd love to get down there and check out some racing at some point here in 2021.
And one thing to remember about Mississippi Thunder Speedway was they held a race there when technically the state of Wisconsin was still shut down.
Or is that what that meeting? Okay, maybe that's why that Facebook Live.
Yeah.
Okay, so it was still closing. Okay.
I mean, they did everything in their power to put that race on. They made people wear masks. They limited the number of people. I think it was 5 pit crew members per driver or something like that. But I mean, they made it happen. I mean, and there was a race before the state was officially open. And I mean, I think that says a lot to fans and even potential sponsors. I mean, the lengths that they'll go to put on a race.
Yeah, they had the race to be essential, right? Is what it was. And,
yeah.
And the promoter there, Tyrone, he's a promoter, but the owner and I guess co-promoter, if you will, Bob Tim, they're business-minded people and they're problem solvers, right? They very easily could have said, well, let's just kind of let the dust clear. When it happens. But in my opinion, they spearheaded the whole beginning to the racing season in Minnesota and Wisconsin because of all the effort and time and everything they put into making that initial race happen. It got a whole bunch of other track promoters going, well, heck, I mean, if they did it, maybe we better look at a way to make this work. So they really catapulted the 2020 season for Minnesota and Wisconsin, in my opinion. And they always strive to go bigger, right? It's not like nothing against the club run tracks, but they're like, well, we're just going to try to get the show in, right? And they got big vision. They're trying to have bigger, better, a beautiful facility. We've watched a ton of races, and there's tracks where like, the track was not very good. And all of a sudden they have a track night where the track's like a little bit off, and they're like, oh man, we really apologize. We dropped the ball on that one. And, they're striving for excellence in everything they do. And I'm expecting big things to happen down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway in Fountain City, Wisconsin. So hats off to those guys. And now let's talk about some drivers, right? And I like to call this one the crowd pleaser moment of the year for 2020. And I'll go ahead and take this one because I'm so excited that I got to be a part of this one. But we had the Fastlane Motorsports and Powder Coating Northland Superstock Series, and it was the finale over at the Big O, the Wegmans Ogilvy Speedway, Ogilvy, Minnesota. Shane Sabraski had that baby won. He was already basically crowned champion. He had to start the feature. He was supposed to start second inside. Dirt Race Central, John specifically from Dirt Race Central came up with an idea. Him and I put it together, created a little bit of extra money to go towards it, and said, Shane, here's the deal. You start dead last in this baby and win, and you're going to get a nice little check and the extra $1,805. Hemmed and hawed about it, got the fans involved. They said, heck yeah, we want to see him do it. So he said yes. And guys, he put on a show starting 26th and winning that deal in just impressive fashion. And the energy that was at the racetrack in that deal, guys, it was awesome. And I know you guys got to see that. What was your thoughts on that in 2020 with Shane Sabraski at the Big O?
Go ahead, Bert.
Well, I mean, in this day and age with the technology that's on these cars, it's hard to start deep in the field and get to the front. So to start 26th and work your way up and win the race, I mean, that is quite a feat all by itself, let alone for the extra money.
Ryan, when was it? Was that July or June? Do you remember?
July.
Okay, so what I want to say is, because we picked up so many new viewers over the last handful of months. If you did not see that, we have some great clips. So if you go back to our July shows on Facebook or YouTube, you can actually watch some of those highlights because, right, we got some great coverage from Dirt Race Central. But yeah, I mean, the way you were working the microphone there on the front stretch, Ryan, putting him on the spot, I thought that was great. So, it's not up to me, it's up to the fans, and the fans are roaring. I think that was fantastic and really good for racing.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun. And just a class act individual. And what's impressive to me is, if I would have came from 26th to first in the super stock, I would have needed a new quarter panel, might have had some tire marks on the side of the car. Guys, he didn't even touch anybody all the way to the front. And, the fans really enjoyed that. So another treat in our area, being able to watch him do that. Now, there's a couple crazy things that happened this year. Again, I wouldn't have seen this if it weren't for, I guess, the technology that we have today. But over at the Dakota Classic Mod Tour, there was a stock car race, IMCA stock car race. And, we're going to call this the what the hell was that moment of the year. And man, do you guys remember that deal?
Go ahead.
I remember it somewhat. I don't remember the specifics about it. So I'm not going to explain it because I don't have the specifics like you know it. So I'm going to let you explain it.
Well, I'll just take. I remember the first time I watched it, I didn't really get it at first. I'm like, well, what's the big deal? And I'm watching everyone checkered flag flew, everyone pulled off the track. Then watching it again, I picked up on what it was. And Ryan, you can explain to everyone kind of what happened there.
So the footage from Race XR, and we'll play the clip right here so you can watch it. Guys, I'll have it listed on here. I don't remember the name of the track. I should have that in front of me, but needless to say, it was a heat race. And they come around and they had to exit the racetrack off of turn 2. The pits were in the back straightaway. And the leader comes off of turn 2 and pulls off like he's going to the scales. And second follows. And third follows. And everybody follows. And they're announcing, they're like, there's still one more lap, right? And finally, somebody got the attention of the last place car. In the last place car, like everybody's like off the track, and that last place car turns back on the track. They go around, he gets the win, and it's like, I don't think the dude's ever won a race ever in their entire life. So imagine that year, track race fans, the last place guy or gal that never wins a race, ever, being able to pull something like that off. That was crazy. I've never seen it. They always say racers are like a bunch of sheep, and yeah, they were exactly right in that one right there. That was one of the crazier things that I've seen in dirt track racing was that. Now, let's get into something that may have been a little more crazy, right? And we're going to call this the 2020 meltdown of the year. All right. And Puka, where did this happen at?
Oh gosh, out in Jamestown. Oh, this was insane. This was during the Stampede, correct?
Yep.
And we have it. I know we have it for those of you that are on our TikTok. I went and found it on October 10th. We posted this one. It says after the checkers, but yeah, racing can get heated, and there can be rivalries throughout the year or actually throughout the years, plural. And sometimes things get to a boiling point, and we had a driver that got to his boiling point, and I don't think he intended for this to happen. Do you guys want me to get all into it, or do you want to explain it, Bert?
No, you can explain it. Go ahead.
They're on the cool down lap. Checker flag flies. They're on the backstretch, and this driver, and I can't remember his name, but he goes and belts the car in front of him, and both of them are up and roll over. And now this gentleman's gonna Ryan will give you the specifics on it. He's got a little bit of suspension time out there in Jamestown.
Yeah, this gentleman, his name is AJ Davenport, and I don't remember the other driver, but needless to say, he hooks the other driver, drives over him. He goes over the top. That guy rolls over. This is way after the race. I mean, I've seen people. I mean, we're talking about, you can look at Cedar Lake, right? You got the incident between Turbo and Bobby Pierce where they kind of nose and the whole place went bonkers. This is that on steroids times a million. I mean, like literally, it wasn't just like a bump. It's like just completely carnage. And they give him a 10-year ban from the Jamestown Speedway. I believe was it a 20 or 10 or 20,000? It was a big number. It was either $10,000 or $20,000 fine. It was substantial, where a portion of that has to go to the driver, portion goes, he ain't never going to pay that. That's just simply not going to happen. He also got an indefinite suspension from WISSOTA. He got a fine there. I haven't heard if he got anything from IMCA, I'm assuming. But guys, I mean, that was literally the meltdown of the year for AJ Davenport. So you guys can enjoy the footage here and kind of check that one out. Now, let's get into some drivers that maybe performed on a high level, right? And it's not all drama. It's not all drama, okay? And last week we talked about the inaugural One to Go Show regional late model power rankings, and we actually honored the One to Go Show regional late model power rankings driver of the year,
the X Factor, Jesse Glenz. Go ahead, Bert. You can start on this one.
Yeah, Jesse Glenz was. We named him the driver of the year. We put a lot of time and effort in. Well, Ryan put a lot of time and effort into doing a lot of research, comparing him to other drivers head to head, and it's a very fitting award for Jesse. And as good as this season was, it's probably just the beginning of many, many good seasons, hopefully anyway.
Yeah, fantastic guy. We got to do an interview with him. Click on last week's show. We caught up with him, and he talked a little bit about his season, and just a class act guy.
Absolutely. And just, I mean, what's cool to me is he doesn't have that huge budget. Again, nothing against people that do, but he's able to perform at such a high level with a 4-year-old car, an engine that I think he said was a 2015 engine that was originally in his modified, and to be really the shining star. I mean, there was a lot of good drivers in our area, but he stood out at the top, and just a great year for Jesse Glenz in the 7X. Now, let's get into the national late model driver of the year. Hookah, what do you got there?
Brandon Sheppard. I guess it should really come as no surprise. Your World of Outlaw late model champion 2020, and we were kind of looking at just some of the money stuff, just as World of Outlaw winnings, about $250K, and then you add the 50,000 at North South 100, you had the 50,000 at the I-80 at the what do they call that one? I-80. Oh,
it's Silver Dollar.
So Silver Dollar, yeah, Silver Dollar Nationals. Super impressive. And then, like I said, he won that one in October, and I actually found in my notes the one at Falls that they raced in October. I found the name of that. Oh, Fall Frenzy. It was 15K at the Fall Frenzy. So he's pushing, 300, say, like I said, won some Hell Tour races. He's pushing $400,000 in earnings in 2020.
Wasn't there $100,000? Wasn't there $100,000 to show in there too?
Well, actually, the North South. The North South was 100. That's right.
Dirt Track World Championship.
Or Dirt Track World Championship.
Yep.
That's right.
Yep.
Well, God, that's where he won that one too. Yeah. Okay. Gosh, I'm all over. I'm thinking down in the South. So yeah. So we're talking $500,000, $500,000 in winnings.
Apparently, he won so many races, we don't even know which ones he won.
Can't keep track. Yeah.
And that's a close deal. It was closer than I thought, because when you run the numbers between him and, you put him side by side on the nights that he ran against Brandon Overton, guys, they raced against each other 30 times, and Bichette beat him 15 times. Overton beat him 15 times. So it was split right down the middle. And actually, side by side, right, Overton had one more win against him, 8 versus 7. So when they were head to head, Overton had a slight nod. But when you look at the money this guy made and the big shows that he won and the Crown Jewels and the World of Outlaw Championship, and he does have 4 more wins than Overton, man, what a season. And humble guy. I mean, we kind of knock a little bit on Mark Richards as he's like the political guy in dirt track racing, but Brandon Sheppard, absolutely deserving of that. And, as any closing thoughts there on Bichette?
Well, just the fact that we were talking a little bit before the show, he also won a race or 2 on a mod also. So we don't even talking about that. So yeah, just, we talked, when we talked about the late model power ranking, some guys that had a dream season, definitely a dream season for him. We'll see what the future holds. Will this be his best season ever? I would probably take the under on that, thinking he will have many more, possibly even better than this, because he's so young and he's got the resources with Mark and Rocket and everything. But very deserving of our driver of the year.
I agree. And, I just want to mention that I do believe that I picked Brandon Sheppard to win the World of Outlaw Championship this year. So I think my comment was, until somebody proves that they can beat him, he's got to be your pick every year.
Yeah, I will say that I had a second, but it was not a close second. It definitely was not. So great year there for Brandon Sheppard. Now let's go one step further, right? Because he's the national late model driver of the year. But I think we have to recognize the overall driver nationally, right? Nationwide, the One to Go Show national driver of the year. Keith is going to love this. Puka?
Yes. Kyle Larson, a guy that we brought up earlier. Ryan said 46 wins. He won in a sprint car. Well, he won a World of Outlaw sprint car. He won an all-star sprint car. He won in a midget. He won in a late model. I mean, did he actually have any chance he had a NASCAR win before they knocked him out of there this year?
He didn't, but he also won in USAC, right? So he won that mile deal or whatever. I won one of them deals. So, I mean, the guy gets into a race car, and it doesn't matter what – he put him in a wheelbarrow, and I'm pretty sure he'd have a good opportunity to win.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, we were having the race counter to see if he could reach 50. I mean, we had that with Sabraski during the season, but towards the end of this race season, nationally, we were wondering if Larson could reach 50. Came up a little bit short, but to even approach 50 is just amazing, and to do it in such a variety of sanctioning bodies and types of cars. I mean, who would have thought he was going to win a late model race?
I really didn't think he was going to finish in the top 10. To be honest, I thought, and really, I mean, he ran really well there. What was it? Portsmouth? Is that where it was?
Yeah.
So, I mean, he really ran well there. That was kind of one of his stomping ground tracks. He performed well in the sprint. And he kind of laid an egg there a little bit at the Dirt Track World Championship. He didn't quite perform as good as he thought, but my goodness, I mean, what a treat to be able to watch this guy. Thank you, NASCAR, for getting rid of him this year, so we had an opportunity to watch him race real race cars. That was pretty nice of you, because I don't watch NASCAR, so I wouldn't have watched him in that. But, man, just absolutely impressive. Super thankful that it sounds like he's going to continue to still be able to drive some dirt track racing, even though he is back into NASCAR. So I'm excited for that in 2021. Puka.
I want to look this up just to make sure, because I had an inkling on this. He also won the Chili Bowl. I mean, that was so long ago, but he won the Chili Bowl too. So,
that's how he started the year. You're right. Yes. Yes.
I mean, geez, oh man, just incredible.
Yeah.
Why even go back to NASCAR, Kyle? What are you doing?
Yeah, then you got his wife shotgun and beer. She's going to turn into a flat old alcohol. He keeps winning. He had to get back into NASCAR, otherwise she was going to be going to AA.
That's probably it. Yeah.
So yeah, great year there, Kyle Larson, the One to Go Show National Driver of the Year. And I think we'll end with this. We got one more, and because, I mean, we're kind of a regional, most of what we talk about is regional, especially during the Wissota Dirt Kings and Tri-State, kind of season, so to speak. And I think we would be remiss if we didn't have a One to Go Show regional driver of the year. And Bert kind of mentioned him a little bit already, right? The one and only, the Ironman, Shane Subraski, the regional driver of the year. And, Bert, I'll let you kind of start on Shane a little bit, jump over to Puka, and then I'll recap.
Well, I mean, before we started doing this podcast, I wasn't real familiar with Shane Subraski, but you two kept talking about him. So back to streaming, I watched some of the races on streaming. And then, I mean, as soon as I watched my first race, it's like, okay, now I understand why they're talking about him. Yeah. I mean, we had throughout the year, we were wondering if he would reach 50 and couldn't quite do it. But I mean, to even be talking about 50 feature wins in one season, especially in a COVID year where, some tracks didn't even open and schedules were constantly changing, just a phenomenal year.
Yeah, and he races Wissota where, you're penalized for doing well, right? You're starting 8th, you're starting 7th, you're starting 8th. And to echo Bert a little bit, I mean, I knew Shane as a great super stock driver. I knew Shane as a great B-mod driver. I didn't really know the accolades and all the winning that he had done in the A-mod. Like I said, I'm a late model guy. We all know that from the show, so I pay more attention to that. So that part of him, this year, especially with that, he was lethal in that lethal chassis. And, I got to see a couple of his wins down at the Gondik Law Speedway this year. But yeah, just, fantastic, and way to go, Shane, and make it a goal next year, Shane, to hit 50.
Yeah, he had a heck of a year, just shy of the 50 mark. And I feel like I'm kind of responsible maybe for him not hitting there, because I think I jinxed him up at the Northern Nationals in Superior. He was literally, within striking distance there, and and actually striking distance of hitting 700. He hit, was it 700 feature wins? He hit that mark at the King of Dirt over at the I-94 Speedway. And of course, I got to be a part of that, and I got to interview him down in Victory Lane. I mean, unbelievable the career this guy's had. And just like Brandon Sheppard, he ain't done winning. This guy's got a lot more winning to do. And I mean, he's raced everything. He's heading down to Arizona for the Wild West Tour.
Oh,
so
nice.
We'll be able to jump on, I guess it'll be on Flow Racing. We'll be able to jump on there and catch him in action down there. So that'll be fun to see. But a class act, one of those, it's weird to me. Shane's weird to me. Shane, I love you, man, but you're weird to me, right? Because this guy wins a ton of races everywhere he goes, but everybody likes him. I mean, it's crazy. I mean, usually when somebody wins that much, you've ruffled a few feathers along the way and you got some people talking smack about you, but like, he's one of the most humble guys. His whole family is. I mean, I know all of his grandpas and grandmas and, his parents and his pit crew and his wife, and everybody's just super down to earth and extremely humble, hardworking, one of the most talented drivers in our region. And it's a ways out, but I'm excited. I hope he goes another 10 more years, because it would be super cool to see him hit that 1,000 mark. And
Right.
I brought up numbers to him. He's like, I don't keep track of any of that. Like the wife takes care of that. He goes, he just wants to race. And we did get to see him in a late model. He drove a car for Provenzino, and the night ended early. He kind of caught up into something there. And I think the rear bumper came off in an accident, kind of got hooked in that deal. It wasn't his fault. But maybe we'll get to see him a little bit more in a late model this year. That might be kind of fun. But, just unbelievable. That night coming from the back and, watching him just kind of dominate most of the season up at the Gondik Law Speedway. This guy was absolutely phenomenal. And if it would have been a longer season, because he kind of got a late start where he is, he would have hit 50 easily. I mean, he was just a handful short of hitting 50. He would have hit that for sure. And when it comes down to Wissota not having national points, I kind of feel like that cost Shane Subraski some money, because I'm pretty sure he would have been in the conversation, if not locked, to win the modifieds and the Superstock National Championship in 2020. I've never really did the numbers on that, but I have a hard time believing anybody else would have came close. So just a great year overall. The Ironman, Shane Subraski from Rice, Minnesota, runs a Superstock, ran a little bit in the Midwest Mod, runs a modified up here Class act individual. Congratulations, Shane, on that. And, you know, with that said, you know, that's, I guess, our season in review here for 2020. Guys, you know, what are your closing thoughts as we end our final show of the year?
Go ahead, Bert.
Well, I'm glad that 2020 is coming to an end. I know just the turning of a calendar doesn't necessarily mean the world's going to change, but 2021 can't be much worse than what 2020 was. So I'm looking for bigger and better things all around in the racing world in 2021.
Yeah, I just, you know, I want to be optimistic, and I am optimistic, but you know, I just don't know. You know, cases continue to rise. And of course, it's winter. You know, our only solace is we get into, you know, the days. Days are getting longer right now. You know, and then warmer weather will start coming through the south, and hopefully we can beat this thing. Otherwise, you know, we might be back in the same situation in 2021. And I hate to see it. And I hate to say it because I want to be optimistic. And so with that being said, it's going to be interesting again. Will South Dakota stay open? Will they start racing right away? They've already kind of been through it once, you know. Are other state, you know, what is Wazota going to do? Are they going to, like I said, kind of sit back a little bit and be conservative and just kind of say, well, we're not so sure, you know, and Wisconsin going to get going. And so, you know, because, you know, we talked about some tracks that didn't open and some track that benefited from COVID, you know, and so are we going to, you know, see tracks closing? And like I said, ad dollars drying up. So, you know, I'm excited for 2021, just like Bert. But, you know, I'm just not quite there yet that, you know, of course we got the vaccines coming too, but how fast they're going to roll out, what's going to happen there. But, you know, because a lot of people have said they're not going to take the vaccine anyway. So then, you know, so I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, I guess you'd say. And I just want to take that time to wish both of you and everyone that's watching or listening today, you know, a happy new year, happy 2021.
Yeah, and I agree. Happy New Year to everybody, and especially all the people watching the show, you guys, all of our families. I'm more optimistic. I'm a firm believer that winners win. That's what they do, period. See, the most successful people in life are problem solvers, and a testament to that would be the folks down at the Mississippi Thunder Speedway. They pivoted. They found a way to make it work. They created success because they wanted to make success, right? So the people, no matter – if we mirror and knock on wood, we ain't going to mirror 2020. I really believe that. I think this is going to end sooner rather than later. I said that at the beginning of the year too. But the fact of the matter is, I truly believe that. I think, you know, there might be still some struggles or whatever, but I still think that it's going to end. Now, the fact of the matter is, though, the people that want to succeed, the people that find a way to kind of make it happen, they make it happen. And the people that want to kind of make an excuse, right? They're like, oh yeah, but all this is going on. It is what it is, right? So I'm optimistic that regardless of everything, we're going to see some fantastic racing in 2021. And, you know, I'm going to ask you guys one question to end the show is, who is the driver? I don't care if it's regionally, locally, nationally, I don't care, right? Who's the one driver that you're really excited to see how 2021 turns out for them?
I got my guy. You want me to start?
Go ahead.
Hot Carl and his Crate Late model. That's the guy. Hands down. Hot Carl, we're ready. Bring it. Let's see it.
Nice. Nice. Well played.
I'm going to say Tim McCready. He won some big races this year. He was just a little bit too inconsistent to challenge Owens for the championship, but it was the first year with a new team. So being that, you know, 2021 being the second year with the team, I'm expecting him to challenge for the Lucas Oil Championship.
In mine, I'm going locally. I'm going to go Jeffrey Massengill. I know Brett's a little mad at me, right? I didn't put him up in the top 3. I didn't put him up in the top 4. Okay, he wasn't up there. I'm sorry, guys. I love you guys. I do. But the fact is, number one, I mean, he performed at a very high level. He raced against all the competition in the area. He hit every big show, and now he made a switch, right? He kind of, this was his breakout year to where people like hey, Massengill's pretty quick. He was in a Kryptonite. Now he's going to be in a Weiss Haley chassis. Totally different deal. So number one, I'm looking to see if this thing's going to be better or worse, right? Because he is pretty darn good this year. Number two is they want to get up in the top 3 conversation. 1 win ain't going to cut it, right? And I want to see if he can get 5, 6, 7, 8. I want to see him get, be one of the higher win counts, because I think it showed this year that he's in the hunt. He was close a lot of times. So I want to see that. I think he's going to run for the race for the National Points Challenge Series, see where he performs on that. I got some high expectations for that 6M. So that's the guy that I'm going to keep an eye on. And, with that said, guys, Happy New Year to you. It's been a great year. I've enjoyed doing the show with you. And Puka, we're going to let you close this baby out in style like you always do.
All right, fans. Like I said, Happy New Year from all of us to all of you. Get out there and be your dream in 2021. You're tuned to the One to Go Show.